Hi there, and welcome to the second day of Advent and the first of our devotional blogs. I'm so glad that you could join with me today. When I was thinking up how we would celebrate Advent and going into Christmas this year, I was struggling a little bit because a lot of the things that we would normally do are not necessarily safe because of COVID. And I have to admit, I would never have ever thought of doing a daily video. So I hope you'll bear with me. I am learning in this process as much as anybody else. But I'm so grateful that we do indeed have the technology that we can celebrate in this way together. Now, I don't know about you, but I've already started to decorate my home for the Christmas season. And so you can see behind me my stocking. I've had that stocking since I was about 7 years old. My aunt crocheted it for me, and since then it's become a bit of a running joke. My sister has a similar stocking. Both of them were patterns available in Woman's Circle magazine in 1977. And so she made one for me, she made one for my sister, and then when my sister got married and had children, she went back, she found the same pattern, and she made the same stockings for my twin nephews. Well, then my niece Mia was born not quite 2 years later, and so she made one for Mia. By the time my niece Finley came about 6 years later, she wasn't sure that she could remember how to actually make the pattern, and so she finally did it, but she left it since I had learned how to crochet since then as well. She crocheted all the pieces and then left me to sew them together. So I did that, and I thought, okay, each of the grandchildren or nephews and nieces each has one of these stockings, which was a little bit of a mix of the pattern you see on my stocking behind me, as well as the Santa stocking that my sister had. Well, as soon as I mentioned something along those lines to my sister, she mentioned that my brother-in-law didn't have a stocking to match. And so, knowing my aunt wasn't quite up to the task of doing that, I made a stocking for him that would match my sister's. Well, I thought again, oh, that's it, we're done. And then my mom pointed out, she said, I didn't have a stocking either. And I'm like, wait a minute, how could she not have a stocking? But my mom now has a stocking that matches mine. And so now we have a whole family of stockings that match, and all that are born out of a gift of love from my aunt to my sister and I when we were young children. Hopefully, you have many Christmas memories of your own, and I hope that you will share them on Facebook or wherever, so that we can share in this season in ways that we may never otherwise have ever considered doing before. Well, today I want to look at A Christmas Carol. For those of you who were in worship yesterday or have been worshiping with us online, you should hopefully know by now that the theme of our Advent season is the redemption of Scrooge. It's based on Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, and because I just can't seem to help myself, I've got a hat for the occasion. Oh my. Let's see if I can do that and get my hair out of my way. And so I hope you'll join me in this season as we look at A Christmas Carol and the lessons that it has to teach us, not just about some piece of literature that's been around and a favorite at this time of year for so many, but the scriptural and life lessons that it offers as well. The author, Charles Dickens, was a profound follower of Jesus Christ, and while he did not write his characters to give sermons, he did try in the course of showing their lives to provide an idea of what it means to be Christ-like and to follow Christ. And so today's devotional comes from this little book called 52 Little Lessons from A Christmas Carol by Bob Welch. And looking at lesson 2, it talks about growing wiser means getting uncomfortable. And what he was referring to is that Charles Dickens actually designed this story to be a ghost story. Now, a ghost story is not something that you would normally accredit as being part of the Christmas season, but certainly that's how it is conveyed as a ghost story with the spirits that visit Scrooge over successive hours of that Christmas Eve. And so the author wanted to go beyond just entertaining readers, but to make us uncomfortable, because it's only when we get a touch uneasy ourselves that we are open ourselves to change. And that's really important. When God created us, God didn't create us to be static or to remain the same, but we were always meant to grow and change with the experiences that we have in life. And so that's important as we consider that. And so there's lots of ways that you might understand the story, but I'm hoping that during this Christmas season, during this Advent season, as we prepare for Christmas, we'll find ourselves open to and being changed by this story, not because it's a story written by a particular man and is very popular, though it is, but because it also has a lot of Christian fundamental ideas behind that. Dickens, the author here writes, Dickens wants us as individuals to confront our own ghosts, and he wants us to feel the chill of regret if necessary, and like Scrooge, to make changes in how we live. All, of course, while maintaining proper Dickens Christmas cheer with a bounty of food, one of my favorite parts of the holiday, and with a subtle but unmistakable seasoning of humor. Listen to this quote from Charles Dickens himself. I have endeavored in this ghostly little book to raise the ghost of an idea, which shall not put my readers out of humor with themselves, with each other, with the season, or with me. May it haunt their houses pleasantly, and no one wish to lay it. And so we're not here to rain on anybody's parade, but rather, as we hear and see the story unfold, look for the humor, look for the lessons, and allow ourselves to be confronted in the same way that Scrooge is. Any of the rattling chains we may have in our own life closets. And so we look at that. It's interesting. The word haunt, as in a ghost story, taken literally, can connotate the physical ghost that we see in the story, first Marley and then the three spirits of Christmas. But haunt also means to visit frequently, or to have a disquieting or harmful effect on, or to reappear continually in. Maybe that's a good word for this story that sticks with us even after we've read it or watched it on TV or in the movies. And hopefully it disquiets us in the best of ways, much in the way that the Holy Spirit disquiets us, forces us to confront things in our life that we may not want to look into. And so this book, this story that Charles Dickens wrote with the idea of inspiring each of us into changing for the better, has had a long history of doing exactly that. In fact, Robert Louis Stevenson, another famous writer in his own right, was so inspired by this book that he read it a second time and said, I have cried my eyes out. I want to go out and comfort someone. I shall give money. And so hopefully we'll find that in reading and speaking about A Christmas Carol, we will be changed as a result. Being discomforted, being uncomfortable at times isn't necessarily bad. It forces us to evaluate what is making us uncomfortable and to make a change. Our thirst is an example of that. When I'm thirsty, that is telling my body and my brain that my body needs something. I need liquid. And so it inspires me to get up and go and get something to drink. And it quenches my thirst. But my thirst is never quenched thoroughly. My body will then later respond and I will get that sensation again, because I need to be taking in liquids in order to survive. Well, in the same way, when we hear or read about stories like A Christmas Carol, and we learn from the mistakes and the lessons that Ebenezer Scrooge has, hopefully we are discomforted too. And it won't be just a discomfort that causes us a momentary, oh, that doesn't feel good, but inspires change. It's when we change, it's when we respond to the Holy Spirit's prompting that we are truly looking toward becoming more Christ like. And in fact, isn't that what we are told by Paul in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 3, verse 18? Being transformed into his image with ever increasing glory. My hope today for you and for me is that we will all be inspired to make some change by the disquiet and discomfort that we may feel at the prompting of the Holy Spirit. Maybe it will be something in the story of A Christmas Carol, or maybe it will be in a conversation you have with someone else, or maybe it will be in some news cycle that you read. I don't know what it will be for you, but my hope is that each of us, when we find that discomfort, will, instead of immediately trying to get rid of it, stop to consider, is the Holy Spirit, trying to speak to my heart today about something that makes me uncomfortable and in which I may need to be changed and transformed by the living God whom I serve and love. And so I remind you today, just as we heard in yesterday's benediction, there's a little Scrooge in each of us. Maybe don't want to be reminded of that, but it's true. But that little bit of Scrooge in each of us, it's yearning to thaw. It's yearning to love again. And so let us be looking for and visited upon by a surprising peace that passes and surpasses all of our understanding. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward to sharing with you tomorrow. Have a wonderful November 30th.